All too often, I think the history of Jews in Germany is distilled into the final and tragic chapter where an entire people and an entire culture and legacy was nearly destroyed. But it's important to know that Jews didn't arrive in Germany right before the Holocaust. They were there for more than 1700 years.
Over the past 1700 years, there has been a remarkable history of Jews in German-speaking lands. There are stories of migration, exclusion, inclusion, persecution, success, and resilience, all of which are valuable reminders of this important history and provide lessons for today about how a minority culture can survive and thrive while living side by side with a dominant culture. At LBI, we created the Shared History Project to illustrate the coexistence, cooperation, and tensions over the centuries. Weekly throughout 2021, the Shared History Project will reveal an object that tells a story and illuminates the lessons learned from 1700 years of Jews in German-speaking lands. Some of the academic experts who we consulted with will describe their favorite objects, beginning with one from the year 321.
The edict by Kaiser Constantine the Great, written in the year 321, and it's the earliest surviving written source on the existence of Jews in Central and Northern Europe. The city council expanded to include new members and thus also its sources of income, because to be part of the city council, one had to pay. We can therefore assume that at the time of the edict, there was a Jewish community living in Cologne before this very significant date. It is a law that applies throughout the empire, so it is obvious that there were Jews in more or less every important city of the late Roman Empire.
And one of my favorite objects in this section is the Plochen Parochet, the covering of the Torah Ark from Prague. It is a wonderful example of gender boundaries, of inclusion of women in Jewish life and sacred spaces, but it also shows the shared aesthetic of the period. These are beautiful fabrics that were used by not just Jews, but by everybody in this period.
Moses Mendelssohn's eyeglasses, his spectacles, are a wonderful quintessential symbol of who Mendelssohn was. Mendelssohn was a major figure of the German Enlightenment, specifically the Berlin Enlightenment, but he was also a major figure of the Jewish Enlightenment, the Haskalah. Throughout his career, Mendelssohn wrote in Hebrew, and his magnum opus in that regard was his translation of the Torah, of the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, into High German. Mendelssohn's translation was published in Hebrew letters.
The Neue Synagoge, the new synagogue, the Orianenbürgerstrasse synagogue in Berlin from the 1860s, the facade. Now that's an example both of the fact that Jews felt confident in their new place in German society, but also were confident enough that they were willing to articulate Jewish difference, that they built a beautiful, magnificent synagogue that can be seen on the cityscape in a Moorish style, a made-up Moorish style, as if to say, we are here and we are proud of the fact that we're somewhat different.
You have the medals that the war veteran won. So this could also be one of those examples. On first glance, it's simply a medal. You earn it you achieve it. It honors your achievement as an army soldier and not as a Jew. But the person who owns it and keeps it and takes it into emigration also tells us something about his Jewish identity.
First is, of course, the yellow badges, the stars of David, marking, showing that physical shard from the past, this piece of cloth which represents marking, distinguishing, identifying, and therefore separating, exclusion of Jews from the body politic and from society, is key to the Holocaust. The Sharit HaPlita volumes, in their very presence, the listing of the names, seeing the listing of the names. That very presence also deals with absence, with loss.
Certainly Fritz Bauer's judicial robes are, mark another moment of a kind of very complex shared history that you have, in this case, a German Jew who had emigrated. I don't like to use the term exile. Bauer, who does return to Germany and plays an extremely important role in the city of Frankfurt, a major moment in Germany's long and halting and reluctant, but ultimately rather profound confrontation with its past.
What the LBI does, and I think does very well, is translate this experience into the digital realm. That would be a challenge, at least for the digital realm, that artifacts themselves aren't, you can't do without artifacts. Also, it really is just a question of the depth of the experience. So artifacts give you a completely different learning experience and can enhance your learning experience, and the physical senses that we have as human beings are also ingrained into this whole learning process. So I'd say as much as the translation of these experiences can be undertaken into the digital realm, the physical objects themselves are, of course, irreplaceable. And that's what makes the archive, for example, so important.
Both the Shared History project and the core exhibition of the Jewish Museum Berlin focus on the relationships between Jews and non-Jews, primarily Christians, throughout the ages, and view it as a constantly changing dynamic process and not one between two static blocks. The core exhibition of the Jewish Museum Berlin views inclusion and exclusion as the two poles between which the course of Jewish history is to be understood. The criteria and conditions for belonging and exclusion are renegotiated and determined within both the Jewish community and by the surrounding society. The understanding and perception of Jewish history will, we hope, also be communicated through the Shared History project.
What the LBI has shown us, it's shown us a lot of things, of course, but it's also shown us that the connection, the historic connection between current generations of Jews living in Germany with past generations of Jews living in Germany is necessary for us to understand the situation we're in the present, and to also develop ideas for the future.
The Shared History Project consists of several pieces that will combine to tell the story of Jews in German-speaking lands. The centerpiece is a website that will present an object each week during 2021. Revealed in chronological order, each object will be accompanied by an historical essay, a personal story, and related materials. The website will also maintain a virtual exhibition that will allow the user to visit the objects in a simulated museum environment. Shared History will also include conferences in 2020 and 2021.
One sees in the history of Jews in Germany a kind of cycle of migration, inclusion, exclusion, success, achievement, persecution, resilience, redemption. And this experience expressed in the lives of individuals is so important in order to understand first what was nearly destroyed by the Holocaust, but also what made life in Germany so rich and varied for the Jews who lived it.